Hello YouTube, welcome back. Check out the finished product on my daughter's bike. If you'll check my videos, there's a part 1 of this bike showing it from when we bought it. It was a rusty mess. I bought it at an antique store. I saw it out of the corner of my eye and saw this shock, and I was like, whoa, that's a nice shock for a rusty old bike. And looked at the bike a little bit closer, found out that it was a Trek. And it had some really nice components on it, and so we bought it cheap and fixed it up for my daughter, and it turned out excellent. This video, it looks like my seat is really tilted forward, but when the bike's sitting on the ground, the seat's pretty level. So the bike is, I think, a 93 or 92 model Trek 930. Just from a little bit of research that I've done, there is a VIN number, serial number under the bottom bracket, but I didn't really find a good place to look it up. So just looking on the internet, looking around, it seems to be about a 93 or 4 Trek 930. It's a chromoly frame. It's lugged, as you can see here. All around there was really neat to have a lugged frame that was still a 1 1/8 threadless stem. Now the bike came with a threadless setup with these forks. I changed out the stem, but it was threadless when I got it. I don't know if possibly it could have been a 1 1/8 quill stem from 93, but I think from the pictures I've seen on the internet, it was available in a threadless also in the upper end of the Trek 930s, which I believe this would have been, because it's Deore XT components, Deore XT brakes, levers, and also it was a upper end bike originally, and we fixed it up nice. So what did we do? Sandblasted the frame, of course, tore it completely down, took everything out, bottom bracket out, headset out, and everything. Sandblasted the frame, painted it. I used Spray Dot Bike paint to paint it with. Spray Dot Bike is a dry, or a I don't know, a cool powder coat. It's a powder coat that you do not bake on. It's a really neat product. It sprays on really neat. It's a powder. It comes out really powdery. And then I used their clear coat to clear the bike. We went with this color orange. My daughter took a little paintbrush. Before we did the clear coat, she went around the lugs like this. I had an old Centurion sitting here that I bought, a Centurion road bike that I just bought to sell, and it was a 70, no, maybe an 82 model or early 80s, something like that. And the trim around it was like this, factory. And I looked and I saw some other bikes that had that kind of treatment to it, around the lugs where it's just trimmed out. So she trimmed it out with some white paint and a brush, and then we cleared over it. My daughter is 14. The bike she had was a Diamondback, kind of a hybrid kind of a bike. It was a small frame that she had outgrown. This is more of a medium-sized frame. I haven't measured it, but it's about an 18 to 18.5 inch frame. So we painted it, got it clear coated, and cleaned up all the parts, all these aluminum parts in the brakes, the derailleur, the seat post. This is original. These brake levers. If the aluminum is not clear coated, if it's just raw aluminum, and SOS pad cleans them up great. SOS Brillo pad with the soap, little wire pads with the soap in them, works great for cleaning aluminum. These are the original rims. They cleaned up very nice. What I added new is going to be the 1x setup. This crank setup I've installed 2 of these. It's a cheap set from Amazon. It's a square taper bottom bracket, and this bottom bracket I took apart and cleaned and greased, and it was in good shape. So I kept the square taper and just added this one by. These are 165 cranks with this is a 36 tooth, which this one's a race face. I ordered it with a 42 tooth narrow wide chain, and I put that 42 on a different bike, knowing that the 36 that was on that bike was not good for that bike, but was going to be great for this bike. So that 42 that came with this, you get them on Amazon for less than $50, between about $45 and $50 for the 2 crank arms and a narrow wide chain ring. So that other chain ring went to the other bike and brought that chain ring here, so 36 tooth narrow wide, so that I could take off the front derailleur. I'd much rather have the one by. Get rid of the front derailleur, especially for a kid or an inexperienced, not so much an inexperienced rider, but just a casual neighborhood rider. With the 3 by, you know, you've got to make sure you're in the right gear depending on what you're in the back. If you're outside in the back, you need to be outside in the front. You don't want to cross your chain, all kind of crazy stuff. It's just too confusing shifting front and rear, so I like to get rid of it and just run the one by. Again, this is a narrow wide chain ring, so it holds on well. And I keep the rear cassette like it is, and derailleur, this is an 8-speed. So it's just a 1x8, where my mountain bikes or gravel bikes are 1x12. But I do a heck of a lot more with mine than what she's going to do with this bike. And the other bike that I went with this crank was a buddy of mine, and he, you know, basically neighborhood riding, rail trail kind of stuff. So it works out great for these folks. Even my wife's bike that I've got set up 1 x works great. It's just a 1x8. Now a modern 1 x system is going to have a better derailleur with a clutch derailleur. It's going to help hold the chain on much better, but again, with the narrow wide chain ring, and no more than what is going to be done with this bike, as far as, you know, a little bit around town or neighborhoods or rail trails. This holds fine. I haven't had any problem with this with the narrow wide chain ring. The narrow wide chain ring really helps a lot to hold that chain in place when you take that front derailleur off. So that works out good. So we put new cranks on the front, and pedals, of course. Again, this is a cheaper set of pedals that I found on Amazon, but it's an aluminum pedal. It's got good grip. It looks good with the bike. So we'll put those on new. I mentioned that I cleaned up the rims, but I had to find some tires, so we went with these Maxxis Pace tire. Of course, this is a 26-inch mountain bike, and this is a 1.95 tire, 26 by 1.95. Not hugely wide, but it's, you know, it's, I guess, period correct. This is what we had in the early 90s. It's a great tire. This tire, I didn't want anything too aggressive. I wanted some off-road ability, but nothing too aggressive, because it's mostly just going to be road and neighborhood and some very, very light trail riding. She's not into single track or really off-road, but I didn't want just a road tire, so this is really a all-terrain tire, I'd say. It's got a nice pattern on the sidewall. The sidewall looks good. 26 by 1.95. These bars are kind of an alt bar, instead of just the straight bar. I wanted to upgrade the cockpit here with a 31.8. That just really updates the look with the 31.8 bar. And I had this stem already, and I actually got these bars, had these bars from a friend of mine. He took them off his bike, and I helped him swap on some new bars, and he just gave me these bars. So I had them sitting in my shed and thought we would try them out, and they turn out great for this bike, and she really likes them. She likes this style. They're very comfortable. They turned out really good in the 31.8 with this race face stem. So we actually ended up with a race face stem and the race face chain ring, so that's nice. Another thing we did with the 1 by, these levers. They're Diori XT, which was really nice back in the day, but they were brake lever and gear shifter made into one. And that's fine over here. They work great, but I don't want that, or didn't want that shifter over here, because I did away with the front derailleur, so I wanted to do away with the front shifter. But it's made together, so what I did, got out my grinder and just started cutting away. You can see that where it's cut. Let's see if we can see underneath. You see the back side where I really cut it and ground it down smooth. I used a flapper wheel on my grinder so that I could get this smooth. There's no sharp edges, no burrs or anything. So I just took the shifter part off of it, cut it off, and ended up with just a nice brake lever for the front brake. Got the bell on there. She likes the bell. These ODI Vans, the gum grips go well with the Charge spoon seat. It's the brown leather Charge spoon, so really comfortable seat. For an inexpensive seat, check out the Charge spoon. I think they're about 30 bucks. And it's a good seat. You can kind of see the shape of it there. Again, the seat sits pretty level when the bike is sitting on the ground. It's leaning a little forward here in the bike stand. Here's a little touch from my daughter. She's very artsy, very crafty, and imaginative. So the external routed cables have the cable stops here for the housing, and then you'll have just exposed cable. Now you can get the little thin kind of cable liner that would go between here and here, and that would work fine, but she, as you can see, loaded this up with some beads. They're just little beads that we put on there when we were putting the new cables on. It is new cables, brake cables, and a rear derailleur cable. So this one's actually the rear derailleur here, and this is the rear brake here. Otherwise the cable would just be exposed like you see here. This going down the seat stay, we decided not to put beads on that, but she liked the beads up here. We've got this little bracelet, again, 14-year-old little girl, customizing her bike a little bit. This is just something from a local downtown roll, they call it, Florence downtown roll. It's a neat little bracelet, goes on there. You can see the lizard on here from the Cane Creek headset. Lots of nice components on this bike, Cane Creek. What else is going on here? The DreamCycle, of course, that's what we titled it, called it, named it, the DreamCycle. The DreamCycle being the little orange ice creams, little orange and white ice creams. So we went with this color and dubbed it the DreamCycle. I've seen that name on other orange bicycles. That's not something that I came up with, but it fits the build, fits the idea. She made this tee with her cricket machine, her little vinyl cricket machine. That's a similar design of a Trek logo. I looked at getting some of the Trek decals from, I think they call it VeloCal, is a company that makes some pretty nice original style decals. I've got some on another bike, but I don't know, we decided not to, and I'm not sure that we will. We may just leave it like it is. It does have Trek stamped into the frame there, and we've named it DreamCycle and put the T on the front, kind of in the shape of a Trek logo. There were some years that had a T that was kind of cut like that, so that's what we went with. You see the rock shock in the front. This rock shock is in good shape. It's a XC28. This was pretty much a cross-country style shock. It works, the lockout works, the preload works, so we've kept that. It's in good shape. Bike rides good, it's nice and smooth. Turned out great, turned out excellent. She loves it, I love it. I just rode around the neighborhood myself. We just finished it up yesterday. She rode it a little bit last night. We're going to ride it a few miles this evening. So this was about a 93 or 94 26-inch mountain bike that turned out absolutely beautiful. I had parts laying around. I added the $50 cranks, $20 or $30 for the pedals. The tires were about $30 or $40 a piece. Inner tubes and the seat is what I bought. Some of the other stuff I already had. Turned out really nice, really beautiful bike. Something that I'm proud of for building. She's proud of it for designing and helping with the build, and has a custom bike. It's all her own. So turned out great. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below, and we'll talk about it there. Thanks for checking it out. Go back and look at the other video of this bike, the part 1. This will be the part 2. So go back and look at part 1 and see the rusty mess that it was when we started. Have a good one. Thank you.